Recap: where we left off, Kim Philby had achieved the impossible. After infiltrating MI6, rising through its ranks, liaising directly with the CIA, and secretly feeding Soviet intelligence with Britain's deepest secrets, he was finally under suspicion. The sudden defection of his two closest friends, Burgess and Maclean, had triggered a chain reaction that no amount of charm could stop. But Philby wasn't finished. Not yet. 1951, the double life on the brink. It was a moment of chaos. On May 25, 1951, Burgess and Maclean vanished, gone without a trace, right as British authorities were closing in. Why? Because someone had warned them. And that someone had to be close. Too close. Eyes turned to Kim Philby. After all, he had worked side by side with both men. He had hosted them, dined with them, shared intelligence with them. They were, for all intents and purposes, his brothers in espionage. But Philby denied everything. He played the innocent, again. Calm. Assured. Even cooperative. He sat through endless interrogations by MI5, dodging every question with wit and grace. There was no physical evidence, no signed documents, no recordings. Just suspicion. And in the Cold War world of intelligence, suspicion was never enough. The master manipulator at work, Philby understood something most men in MI6 didn't: doubt could be defeated with confidence. While others panicked, he stayed cool. He leaned into his charm, reminding colleagues of his patriotism, his education, his old-school British values. He had helped set up anti-Soviet operations, hadn't he? He worked closely with the Americans, didn't he? Surely, he couldn't be a traitor. Philby used his public persona, the mild-mannered intellectual, the war hero, the gentleman, like armor. And for a time, it worked. In 1955, the British government issued a public statement clearing Kim Philby of all suspicion. Yes, you heard that right. The man who had orchestrated some of the worst intelligence disasters of the Cold War was declared innocent. There is no evidence that Mr. Philby has at any time betrayed the interests of this country, the Foreign Secretary told Parliament. It was the perfect cover story, written by the very government he was betraying. Briefcase emoji, life after suspicion, the return of the shadow after being forced to resign from MI6, many assumed Philby's career was over. But espionage has long memories, and Philby still had value. In 1956, just a year after being cleared, he was quietly sent to Beirut, Lebanon, officially as a journalist for The Observer and The Economist. But unofficially, Philby was once again on MI6's payroll, acting as an informal liaison, monitoring Soviet activity in the Middle East, reporting back to British handlers. Or so they thought? In truth, Philby was still working for the KGB, feeding them everything he received. Once more, he had turned a new post into a goldmine of intelligence. Beirut became his second playground, a city of secrets, embassies, spies, and shifting loyalties, the perfect environment for a man living in the shadows. Meanwhile, in Moscow, the KGB watched from afar, impressed, but cautious. Philby had done the impossible, survived exposure, been publicly cleared, and gone back to work. But they worried. Was he still loyal? He had made no contact with his Soviet handlers for years. Was he playing both sides now? Philby knew this. He sensed that even Moscow was starting to doubt him. He was walking on a razor's edge, between London's suspicion and Moscow's paranoia. A single misstep could cost him his life. A new generation of investigators. By the early 1960s, British intelligence had changed. The old gentleman's club that trusted a firm handshake and the right accent was being replaced by cold, analytical minds who didn't care where you went to school. And one of them was MI6 officer Nicholas Elliot, Philby's former friend, and now his hunter. Elliot had been close to Philby for years. They had laughed, drank, and strategized together. But Elliot, like others, had begun to connect the dots. He flew to Beirut in 1963, not just to meet an old friend, but to confront him. The confrontation, that meeting, was quiet. No handcuffs. No shouting. Just two old friends in a foreign city. Elliot laid it out clearly, the evidence, the patterns, the betrayals. Philby didn't deny it. In a stunning moment of quiet confession, Philby admitted to everything. Yes, he was a Soviet agent. Yes, he had betrayed them all. But he asked for time to settle his affairs, to talk to his family. And like in a classic spy novel, Elliot agreed. But Kim Philby was still a spy. And spies don't stay put when the net closes. The final vanishing act. Just days later, Philby vanished. No calls. No messages. No trace. He had slipped through Beirut's port, boarded a Soviet freighter, and disappeared into the Mediterranean. Kim Philby was gone. When the ship docked in Odessa, a car waited. From there, he was taken to Moscow, greeted not as a defector, but as a hero. The man who had betrayed Britain, humiliated the CIA, and fooled the world, had made his final escape. The cold aftermath. Back in London, MI6 was humiliated, the press erupted. The government scrambled. Parliament demanded answers. How could a man known to be close to traitors, a man questioned for years, still vanish without capture? The truth was bitter, they had underestimated him again. And so the legend of Kim Philby grew, not just as a spy, but as a symbol of institutional failure. He had slipped away not because he was lucky, but because he had mastered the art of trust, deception, and betrayal. End of episode 2. In episode 3, we go deep inside Philby's life in Moscow, a lonely existence filled with paranoia, vodka, and memories. Was he celebrated, or isolated? Did he regret his choices? And what did the KGB really think of their star agent once he was home? The double life is over. But the consequences are just beginning.